Well, look at that. A few of the old members of the Southern Oregon Pioneer Association getting together for another meeting. It happens all the time up here. Time to reminisce, I guess. I sure hope this gusty wind doesn't blow our friendly spirits away.
Howdy, ladies. Miss Alice, Miss Claire.
Hello, Judge Day. You know, Judge, seeing you here on such a fine October day brings back many memories of how busy we used to be putting those finishing touches to the annual fall get-together of the Southern Oregon Pioneers.
Oh, Alice, those annual reunions were a lot of fun.
Oh, they were.
But recalling those harrowing tales about crossing the plains sure made us think twice about the so-called problems we faced while settling here in the beautiful Rogue Valley.
Well, you know, by my time, there weren't too many of the original pioneers still attending those reunions. But I'd been hearing your story since childhood. And there were a lot of pioneer kids and grandkids like me who loved retelling those stories year after year. And believe it or not, Judge, I do remember some of your stories.
Well, of course now, we all don't have to wait for those annual pioneer get-togethers anymore. Because living here is like living in a full-time pioneer reunion.
You know, I just saw Nathaniel and Loretta Jane.
Look, we seem to have visitors. We should remember our manners and introduce ourselves. Hello, I'm Alice Hanley, and I grew up and spent all my life on a farm just down the hill here on what you know now as Route 238. Perhaps you've been past there on your way to and from Jacksonville, or even gone for a visit. It's called Hanley Farm. My parents, Michael and Martha Hanley, were early pioneers here in the valley who, with lots of hard work and determination, turned a 636-acre donation land claim into one of the most prosperous farms in Jackson County.
My name is Silas Day, and I was one of those early Rogue Valley pioneers we've been talking about. I was barely settled on my donation land claim up on Little Butte Creek when the 1855 Indian Wars broke out. That's when I enlisted in the Oregon Militia and was soon promoted to lieutenant. I founded the Jackson County chapter of the International Order of Oddfellows and was soon elected the Grand Master of 4 states. Boy, we sure did a lot of good deeds round these parts. After our marriage in 1871, my wife Mary and I moved here to Jacksonville to raise our 4 children. And by 1883, when the new Jackson County Courthouse was built, I'd become the county judge, and I served honorably for many years.
Hello, I'm Claire Hanley, Alice's niece. My sisters and I were orphaned in 1904, and I was just 6 years old when I came to live with Aunt Alice at Hanley Farm. My sisters, Martha and Mary, were sent off to live with other relatives, but that's a story for another time. You're probably wondering what the 3 of us were talking about just now with all the pioneer reunions and such. Well, we were all members and in our times officers of the Southern Oregon Pioneer Association. In fact, Aunt Alice was even president one year.
It all began one day when a notice appeared in the local newspaper. I think it was April 4th, 1876, if I remember rightly, and it was signed by no less than 98 of the most prominent citizens here in the Rogue Valley. It called upon the pioneer men and women of Jackson County to meet at the Jacksonville Courthouse and form a pioneer society. They all felt that such an association would promote good fellowship and be a way to preserve the stories of our early past.
Soon after, the first annual Pioneer Reunion was held in Ashland. Early 1843 pioneer General E.L. Applegate of the famous Applegate Trail and beautiful Applegate Valley gave a rousing opening oration, and many other impromptu speeches followed.
From that point on, the society members met every year, alternating between Jacksonville and Ashland, to share their stories and just enjoy the companionship of fellow pioneers. Judge, you must have heard and probably told more of those stories than anyone while you were the association secretary for, 25 years?
26 years to be exact.
26.
And my daughter, Mabel Day Nelson, was also secretary for 27 years after that. In fact, we kept track of the meeting minutes and the pioneers right up to the 60th annual reunion, which was all but 7 years of its entire existence until you took over, Claire, in 1936.
That's right. My goodness, that was a long time, Judge.
Yes, ma'am.
Particularly since one of the more important and rather sad duties as a secretary was to recount for the members the names of the pioneers who had passed since our last reunion, and to help their families compose obituaries so that not just their pioneer stories, but also their contributions to Southern Oregon were duly noted for the entire community.
Oh, Claire, you're right. There were so many stories.
There were.
The year that I was president of the association, that was 1926, saw us celebrating our 50th anniversary, our golden jubilee. By then, of course, many of the original pioneers had passed, or were getting up there in years, but those who came had stories to tell.
She did.
Our keynote speaker, Professor Vining, the son of the original secretary of the association, spoke eloquently about early life here in the valley and of the trials and tribulations that faced all the citizens in Jacksonville, including that scourge of the smallpox, the ravages of 2 disastrous fires, and a huge cloudburst that almost drowned us all. Do you remember that, Claire?
Yes, I do. I remember that one. That was my favorite as a child. And there were some of us children who secretly hoped there'd be another one.
Oh, no. No.
Well, I think those reunions really helped us not just appreciate our past, but gave us a better understanding of our communities and ourselves.
The Southern Oregon Pioneer Association continued to meet annually to remember and honor the pioneers of the Rogue Valley until sometime in 1946.
That's right, and that's when I realized the need for an expanded organization to preserve not only the pioneer stories, but also artifacts and even buildings from the pioneer era. After Alice's passing in 1940, Martha and Mary joined me at Hanley Farm, and in 1946 we were instrumental in establishing the Southern Oregon Historical Society. I was its president from 1949 until my death in 1963.
Claire's sister Mary, prior to her death in 1986, bequeathed our family home, Hanley Farm, to the Southern Oregon Historical Society so that future generations might get a glimpse into their agricultural past from the early days of the pioneers right through until the mid-20th century.
The many years of Pioneer Association records that my daughter and I kept are now part of the Southern Oregon Historical Society. Good afternoon, and thank you for stopping by. And by 1883, when the new Jackson County Courthouse was built, I'd become the county judge, and I served honorably for many years.